Welcome to Rooster AM. My name is Ryan Nelson. Today on this show, we're joined by one of the most accomplished minds in the functional medicine. His name is Dr. Brandon Brock. He's based out of Dallas, Texas. I call him the Dr. House of Dallas. If you have a problem that you don't know how to fix, you bring it to him. He will find a solution because he did for me. He is a powerhouse, a combination of clinical insight, academic achievement, real world experience that cannot be matched. And when I say it can't be matched, I truly mean that. You're not going to find anyone qualified or more qualified than him. He holds not one, but three doctoral degrees, including one out of Texas or TWU, Duke, Parker University, master's from Sanford, an orthopedic advanced practice specialization, blah, blah, one of those long medical words from Duke, a postdoctorate from global clinical research from Harvard Medical University. I hope you're starting to understand the depths of expertise we have here today. Whether he's breaking down complex neurological conditions or leading cutting edge research, Dr. Brock is on the front lines of transforming how we view health, how we view healing, how we can understand the human potential. So get ready for this deep, eye-opening conversation. He is here today for one reason, and this is the reason I believe he's here today. For me, is that Dr. Brock, I believe he may have saved my life. If not, I know that he has improved it greatly. Welcome to the show, Dr. Brock. How are you doing today?
Man, I'm great. That was the nicest introduction I think I've ever had. Thank you so much. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me on. It's always nice to be able to kick back and talk a little health and whatever's going on in this world.
Well, we kind of, I mean, it's weird that how we met because I didn't, I wasn't a believer. I mean, it's just the truth. Like when I've been going through so much depression my whole life. I kind of thought it was normal. I normalized it. I didn't think I was actually depressed until my world got really rocked. And when it got rocked, there was no way out. And I've been going to doctors multiple times. I mean, they'd given me everything. Zoloft, they tried all of the depression medication. They tried all of these different experiments. None of them worked. My local doctor here didn't work. My family doctor didn't work. And then basically, I was talking to my counselor, Julie Wilhite, and she said, I think there's something physiologically wrong. This isn't just mental and spiritual, there's more to it. I want you to see Dr. Brock. And then when I looked it up, I was like, oh, he's one of those functional guys. And I had a mixed understanding of what that meant. For me, it was, oh, he's going to be one of those guys that, says, take this herb, rub it together, throw it in your tea, and you're going to be okay. And that's what I was thinking I was walking into. But here was the thing. I was literally to the last hope. I remember we were driving to Dallas. I looked at my wife and I said, Chloe, if this doesn't work, I don't know how much longer I can go. And I didn't know what that meant, but I just meant I was done. We got down there, and then if you want to share what you discovered and what you saw, I think you said it really good on our last call. The person I was when I walked in compared to what I am now.
Yeah, man. So it's really interesting. People come in for all kinds of things, and you feel energy from that person, and you kind of get a vibe about how they're doing. And in all honesty, when I mean, you're like a lot of patients are. There's a feeling of defeat, there's a feeling of hopelessness, there's this lack of energy because there's so many things that are going on. I mean, you don't feel like you can get better. You feel like you're in this rut. You've seen a lot of other doctors. And, hey, look, sometimes we're like the first place that people come, and sometimes we're the last place or we're the last resort, last ditch effort, kind of like what you went through. And I just knew that you were a person that needed some help, and you needed mental help. You needed, physiological help. You needed somebody, I think personally, you needed somebody that had somewhat of a similar, spiritual belief that you have as well, so that there could be some sort of relationship. And, when you see all those things and then you look deep and you find some stuff that you can treat and you start putting together sort of a formula to help somebody just function better inside, right? And then you support them, with kind words and, with a good heart and things like that. I mean, you can get some great results. And And look, my background is like this. There is a traditional medicine background, right? And then there's this functional medicine background, which I'm sure we'll probably talk more about as we go. So I'm really kind of an integrated practitioner. And, my motto kind of is, whatever works, right? So sometimes a medication is what is needed, and people need that, and medications save lives. But in between all of that is physiological snafus that are happening everywhere. And if you can correct those things, either medications will work better or maybe you don't need them. In some instances, the condition, the nutrient or the dietary change or whatever it may be is the actual best answer. It's not a medication, right? I mean, we don't have medication deficiencies. We have food issues, we have nutrient deficiencies, and all of these things, the way I see it, they play together. So sometimes somebody's taking a medication and it's supposed to do something fantastic for them, like for mental health, right? For depression. Well, if there's certain physiological things that are going on and they're not even really making neurotransmitters the way they should, then the medication becomes pretty much neutralized. And so, that's a big problem. And so then all you get is really side effects and you don't get the benefits. And these are all scientifically proven things. This is not like something that's made up. There's plenty of literature on these things. And when you start integrating it together, once you've seen it and you've learned it, you can't undo it. You can't unsee it. And if you if I was to change the way I practice and just go straight to a traditional medicine model, it would never work for me again because I already know what I can do with a combined model and with the functional enhancement to what I do. So, yeah, man, I mean, that's where I started out with you.
It's like in the Matrix, take this pill for the truth. You can't undo
Well,
what you've seen. You can't undo what you've seen. I'm going to be honest. I've had, and I don't really care because I feel better now. But I will say the doctor I've been going to didn't run the tests that you ran. I know that. It was basically, let's go get your blood drawn, looked at it. Oh, everything's meeting your numbers. You look good. This is Zoloft. Take this, it'll help. And it made it worse. So I took more thinking it would
man.
help. It just everything got terrible. And then they tried other things. And at one point I was taking 6 medications to counter other medications from their side effects. And it was just, it got awful. So you had me take all of these tests. I'm going to be honest. I'm not a doctor. That's why I came to you. If I'd have known, I would have just figured it out myself. Um, I looked at these numbers. I didn't know anything when I was looking at. And really, our first conversation, you were telling me what it was. I was trying to record it. I only recorded a quarter of it. So basically, what you were telling me was that my brain operated kind of too quickly and it was moving chemicals too fast. Is that am I getting that right?
Well, maybe we could just put it like
Or you
this.
could give them the medical
Maybe,
way to people listening. Yeah.
yeah, I would say more like this. The brain has to function like this. First of all, it has to have fuel, it has to have oxygen, it has to have food and nutrients. And then you have to have the appropriate hormone balance so that your brain cells, your neurons will work the right way. And then you have to have neurotransmitters so that these things will connect. And then you have to have it has to be wired to the point to where it's what we call coherent, meaning like the left side is communicating with the right side and each individual piece is communicating with each individual piece. So picture it like a computer. It has to boot up the right way. If it doesn't boot up the right way, then the whole system is malfunctioning or it's functioning inappropriately. So, when I first saw you, the struggles that you were going through psychologically, mentally, and with, you know, just the reflection of behavior that you were trying to deal with, I knew it was one of those things. I mean, I knew it was neurotransmitters, or I knew it was brain coherence, or I knew it was a physiological factor that was going on in there. And these things are like sometimes people get these things because of like something that happened to them emotionally, so it causes like, problems, or they have a genetic issue where it needs to be dealt with. Like some people have genetic issues and you have to give them some sort of nutraceutical or even pharmaceutical to counteract what that gene is doing to a physiological pathway. So when I saw you and I did your history and I went through it, I knew exactly what I wanted to test and what I was looking for. And then the data gives me a direction to go. And then once I find that, I can start making an educated guess rather than just a guess.
Right. And so we were talking, you said, because I'm gonna be real, I was so confused because you said your panel's genetically gifted. That's what you said, but then you go, but it's you said your my neurotransmitters were moving chemical. Is it was it moving the chemicals too quickly or producing too much? Whatever you
Well,
gave me
excuse me,
worked.
one
So
of the
that's what's crazy.
well, and I mean, one of the things that's interesting is so let's say that there's a physiological pathway that I'm trying to work with, and let's say there's 5 steps in that pathway. Okay, so let's say
Mm,
that you need to make serotonin, the stuff that
mhm,
makes you happy, keeps you from being depressed. I say that serotonin turns the volume knob up on all the things that you love in life, right? So people with low serotonin, it's not so much motivation always, well, sometimes it is motivation, but it's just like that volume knob gets turned down. The things that you love are a little bit more dull. And sometimes those things get so dull that people can get severely depressed, right? So if I know that that neurotransmitter has to be made, so you eat a food and it turns into an amino acid, and let's say that amino acid is tryptophan, and then that tryptophan has to go and it has to turn into 5-HTP, and then that has to turn into serotonin.
mhm.
Well, that has to have cofactors, right? So you have to have iron to do that. You have to have methylation to do that. There's all these little cofactors that have to be there in order for you to make that serotonin. And by the way, that medication you were talking about, it only works on recycling that neurotransmitter. But if the neurotransmitter hasn't been assimilated, it's not recycling anything. Okay, so with you, yeah, you had a lot of great stuff on your labs, right? But we know that thyroid, if it's not working well, messes with serotonin. Okay. Estrogen, testosterone, and your other hormones messes with serotonin. Your B vitamin levels messes with serotonin. So that's why I check all these things so that I can actually build a real story rather than just say, oh, you're depressed, here you go. When I say here you go with Zoloft, which we do sometimes, right? But when I say here you go with that, and I don't look at those other cofactors, I don't know if the drug that I'm giving you is dealing with the substrate, the neurotransmitter that you need. So with you, in that physiological cascade to get to that serotonin, you had one gene that was not working. And so I had to say, what am I going to do to bypass that one step and to give you what you're genetically not doing right? And when I did that, boom, your neurotransmitter levels changed without anything else. It was
And it
actually pretty simple.
that's what blows my mind is how simple it was and how cheap it was. Like
Yeah.
seriously, like I'm paying $300 for these medications. What you got me, I think, was $35 a month. And I'm not speaking hyperbole, literally changed my whole being. And it was so quick. I went from waking up, and this is unpopular for probably me to say, but I don't care. I woke up praying to the Lord, Lord, if you want to take me today, I'm not going to be upset.
Yeah.
Like that's where I was to waking up going, Lord, I'm in store for joy today. I described it like this to the my gathering that I meet with every Sunday because people didn't get it. They were like, "How are you such a good pastor? It was so depressed all the time. Like, how did you get?" I Jesus. That's why I believe Jesus carried me through. But there was. I look at him and I said, "Well, it's like this. I would fight all day long to do and accomplish all of these things. Really feed my ego. Do what I had to do to get 15 minutes of joy.
Yeah.
Now I'm getting joy all day and I might have 15 minutes of depression. Like it's completely night and day, which changes my thought process. It changes my decision making. And that's something too that like, and I have no excuses for any bad things I've ever done in my life. I'm a sinner just like everyone else. But do you believe that this could have had some sort of impact on my decision making, the physiology part?
Well, I think, and I'm going to go back to something you said earlier, like, you have these talents to be an expositor, to be a pastor, and to do these things, and
Mm.
to talk knowledge and education. So that's really one part of your brain, right? That has the ability to think and, and then say what you're thinking in a way where people can understand and it resonates with them. But then you have another part of your brain that also deals with joy, and so these are different parts of your brain, and you have one that's really cooking, but you had another one that wasn't cooking so well. And so I think that when people get into a depressed or lower energy state, they're either looking for gratification, they're looking for something to fill that hole. And I think that anytime somebody's trying to get that spark back, they'll do all kinds of things in order to do that. I mean, there is a bit of human preservation in decision making, whether it be good or bad.
Right,
And
right, right.
and it's and I think that everybody goes through it, right? And that's one of the reasons why so many people make decisions that are good, some and that are bad. I think the human nature is that we're trying to soothe ourselves. We're obviously trying to be accomplished. We're trying to make rational decisions. But when that coherence is not there, sometimes the lack of coherence and brain symmetry and brain function and balance of transmitters it warps things a little bit, and sometimes some of our actions are warped. I mean, it's definitely not unheard of. I mean, I will go as far to say as you see these people that go out in public and they do these horrific things like school shootings and things like that. Well, we obviously know that that individual has flaws, but that person also has really flawed neurotransmitters and other neurological functions. And if you look at some of the interesting statistics on some of the people that do this, most of them are on psych meds. Now, I'm not saying that psych meds cause it. What I'm saying is that distortion and that warpedness is there. So people get bent on reality. They get bent on what's okay. They don't understand what's okay and not okay. And some of the things that they execute becomes completely irrational because their brain is not in a state to be rational. So that's why this stuff is so important, man. It is so important to have a brain that is it doesn't even have to be the best brain, but a brain that is symmetric and that is literally booting up the right way and that has some energy is going to have a greater chance of succeeding in life. It doesn't even have to be extraordinarily gifted, but balanced allows you to do things in a way to where you just go through society and you go through and you do things that's appropriate.
Yeah, I know that at least a picture, if you were to try it, just grasp where it was. So if anyone's listening and it is though I was living in a tunnel of gray. Like nothing seemed black and white. It all just seemed really gray. And but I could, and it is it's an odd thing because God's good. We got a good God. Sunday mornings would bring joy to me as I walked into a church, for instance, and I would feel it all day on Sundays. But Monday through Saturday, it was a literal battle every single day. And I think there were people in my well, there were people in my life that saw it. They just wouldn't talk about it because it's like, well, can't talk about a pastor being depressed because they're supposed to be filled with the spirit, but there was something wrong and I knew it, but I didn't. Because I think I just managed for so long doing it. But when I took the magic whatever you gave me, and here's the thing, everybody's asking me what it is, and I'm like, I don't know if I should actually tell them because they'll think it's going to help them, and we're all different. Is that correct? Like,
Yeah, I mean, in what I gave you, and we can get into it if you want to, but what I gave you, I don't typically give to people with like maybe that neurotransmitter issue. I don't always go to that one, but because of your particular gene issue, I had to go one step in a different direction and just change the nutrient type because if I didn't, it could actually make it worse. So,
mm,
I'm really thankful I had that. And look, man, I really got to reiterate this, and that is, humans, we have soul, we have spirit, we are flesh. And those are all really different things. And the flesh oftentimes puts a burden on the spirit, right? And so, you know, I look at it like this. I deal with people of all religions and all kinds of stuff, and really we embrace those people, and we're just here to help heal. But, you know, from a I guess from a Christian perspective, people that are filled with the Spirit have broken flesh. And look, we're all kind of like a sinking ship with a bunch of holes, and we're trying to plug those holes, and everybody's doing it. And when you find out how to plug that hole, or if you have 50 holes, it's hard to plug them all. Maybe you just have one hole. I'm just saying that flesh will bring us to a place to where the spirit sometimes gets challenged. And here's the way I see it. I believe that God does this. He heals. But I also believe that God puts people that want to be healed in the right place, and he uses people that want to do his work with the skills that they're given. Like maybe if I'm given some skills and I want to be a good healthcare provider, I truly believe that God sends people to me so that I can help do his work. Not that he can't do it, but I think he puts people in the right places at the right time to literally accomplish the work that he wants done in their life. And I mean, that's my part, that's my spiritual part of it,
Mm.
right? I mean, that's me doing
Yeah.
what I feel like God's called me to do.
Yeah, and you done it. And that was why I trusted you. It was within 10 minutes you said things that I was like, okay, this is the person I want to be with. It's like Paul says, he still has the thorn in him. What was that? No one knows what it was, but something was affecting him. Um, and yet he couldn't heal himself, which I always thought was interesting.
Yeah.
Paul could heal people, but he couldn't heal himself. And I think it kept him humble. I also think that could have been a tool used too. So I want to emphasize that don't ever feel sorry for don't feel sorry for me as people who watch. I think God was humbling me and showing me other things throughout that hardship. But with all the people praying, He gave me freedom by meeting you and you providing what you did for me. Because like he said, it was something small, but it was life changing. And I don't know if my everyday doctor never did come to that conclusion. It was always just the next pharmaceutical medicine. Um, so all that, I'll just go into some like simple questions, like questions that people who are listening might ask, because these are questions I wish I would, questions I wish I'd have had answers to for the past 20 years, because I will say I was walking in that tunnel for almost 20 years. What exactly is functional medicine and how is it different from conventional traditional medicine?
It's a good
What's the
question.
biggest difference?
I mean, it's a great question. So, I mean, I think a lot of people have a lot of different definitions of what this is, but I'll tell you what I think mine is, okay? Well, I'll tell you what it is for me. A functional medicine perspective means this. I am going to try to figure out what's deficient in that person's life, okay? A lot of it is emotional, mental, spiritual. I'm not an ordained person, but I do like to know what's going on in somebody's life. Like, are they undergoing enormous stress? Because stress changes physiology, changing physiology causes disease. Some people, they don't assimilate there, they're eating the wrong food, and food is the most powerful medicine in the world. There is nothing else more powerful than food. You become what you eat within 6 months. Okay. All your cells will, I mean, if you eat cheeseburgers for 6 months, you're going to become a cheeseburger. I mean, if you can, handle that metaphor. But a functional medicine provider is going to look and find all the holes in the boat and start plugging them with what's appropriate. Do we need to change your diet because it's terrible? Do you need to exercise? Because that's the most important thing that anybody can do, really, is move. Okay. Are you nutrient deficient? And when I say nutrient deficient, is because you're not absorbing it, you're not eating it, or you have a gene defect that doesn't assimilate it, so you need more of it. What is it? Is it, or, do you need a system evaluated? Like, for instance, your gut. If your gut is messed up and you have inflammation in your gut, and that inflammation gets in your body, and that inflammation is soaking your body and it gets in your brain and it messes with the neurotransmitters, and then you get depression because you have a leaky gut with poor food assimilation and all kinds of like bad dysbiosis, or microbiome is all messed up. You see that link in that story? That to me is functional medicine. And it's really not any different than traditional medicine. It's just looking at it from a different angle and taking a different approach. Because there's times where we're doing these functional things, but somebody's really suffering, so they have to have a medication to deal with their symptoms or their issue while we're trying to plug the holes. And sometimes we plug it to the point where they don't need the medication, or sometimes they need both, but they're just healthier with both and not one or the other, right? So conventional medicine is really good at controlling symptoms, really good at dealing with trauma. And there's so many talented specialists out there. I mean, I am not anti, the traditional model, but there's a time and a place for both. I would say that they complement each other very, very well. But that functional medicine is trying to define the journey that you need to go on to deal with the deficiencies so that your body is healthy enough to function so you don't need something else. Maybe you don't need your blood pressure medication. It's not that I'm trying to get everybody off of that, but maybe you don't. Maybe you don't need your statin if you just clean up your diet and we do a few other things and your cholesterol gets better, right? Maybe your diabetes gets better because we give you some things that will help it and you exercise more and we teach you how to use your body more and so you don't need a bunch of that stuff. And so for me, that functional medicine piece is that journey to get somebody healthy enough to where they're at the best that their body can be.
Right. Is there a moment in time where you had like your aha moment or a mentor, or did you have a health issue that you needed to fix that made you search this out, or was it just through study and you realized there are other ways of doing it? I mean, I look at the traditional medicine as like, here's a pill that this is the way I was getting it when you were talking about it. Traditional medicine says, here's a pill, and it's like a shotgun. Boom, it's going to cover a lot of things. Hopefully, it hits your hole, right? What you're saying is, we're not doing shotgun blast. We're going to find it. We're going to target in on that one thing that needs to be fixed that's causing all of the issue, not just throw a bunch of stuff at it. Is that kind of the difference? Or am I really making it too
Yeah,
dumb for the traditional doctor?
no, no, I think you're definitely right on a part of that. And one of the things I'll add to it is like with AI algorithms now, I can take your genes, your nutrient tests, your regular labs, I can do all this stuff. I can assimilate it. I can compare every marker to every marker and I can say this is causing this, that's affecting this. I can plug in the medication, say the medication's messing this up and actually giving you a critical nutrient deficiency. You can plug it all together and literally start to create now. I mean, in the last year, we can literally look at you as a string of events of things that are going wrong and then just start correcting each one in certain order to where that now does what it's supposed to do. I mean, stuff that used to take weeks for us to figure out, you can figure out in 10 minutes. We knew this stuff. We're not using it to come up with answers. We're using it to crunch all this information together so quickly that we can put together, if we have the right data, we can put it together so fast. It's like, wow, this story just popped right out. And I mean, so yeah, you do have medication, which is a shotgun blast, but sometimes it's actually pretty precise, right? But the thing about medication is that, it changes physiology sometimes upwards of 90%. So that's why you have a side effect profile. Sometimes I don't want to do something to change physiology 90%. Sometimes I just want to change it 5% or 10% or 40% or 60%. So it is a little bit more of a scalpel and we fine tuned it. And ev- I haven't had in the last 6 months, I haven't had any two patients that look the same when you really dig down. They're all completely individualistic. It's not just this, you're depressed, here's the medication. You're depressed, here's the medication. You're depressed, here's the medication. And I get
Right,
it. Some people are mentally ill and suicidal. They need some medication, but I would love to work with them on the back end.
right. What made you get into it? Like, what made you look at say, okay, I'm not, I'm not completely throwing this away, but I'm adding this because I know a lot of doctors who they just do what the pharmaceutical rep tells them.
Hey, you know why I became a doctor, man? You know why I did this? So I was in high school, I graduated like 345th or something like that in my class, man. I mean, I didn't care at all. And I got a scholarship to this little junior college out in East Texas called Jacksonville College, right? And it was a very spirit-filled place. And I grew up my grandmother just put the spirit in me, man. I got to be honest with you, I got to give a lot of credit for her. I knew God because of her. I knew God because of God and the Holy Spirit, but she did her due diligence on that. And I'm sitting there in history class, right? And so I finally decided that if I had to pay for college, I should actually study. And so I started doing really good in school. I guess I was not as dumb as I thought I was, or I just applied myself. And so there's this guy named Brother Anderson. He was our history teacher, and he had polio when he was younger. He was about 4'10". He was really crippled. And, he asked this question. I love the History Channel. I used to always watch it growing up. And he goes, does anybody know what Abraham Lincoln had? And I said, Marfan syndrome, because they thought that he might have had like a growth hormone issue, which is why he was taller and he had the bigger bones and everything. Now it's debatable if he had that or not. But I said that, and he looked at me and he goes, Brock, you should be a doctor. I said,
Mm.
I should be. So I went and changed my major. And that was that. Like
Wow.
everything like that, it all changed after that. And so then as I was going through my journey, we have our own health issues. And for me, man, and I'll just straight up say it, my butt hurt all the time, man. It itched, it hurt, it itched, it hurt all growing up. My whole family, I went all over the place. Everybody's trying to figure it out. And here's the deal, like I have celiac disease. I
Oh
can't
my
eat
goodness.
gluten. So the thing is that all I had to do was stop eating gluten, and everything changed. My joints didn't hurt as bad. All my butt felt better. Everything changed, and so I didn't need a bunch of medications for constipation, for bloating, for diarrhea. Sometimes you do need that, but for me, it was that, and that was an aha moment for me because I was like, "You mean all I needed to do was stop eating ramen noodles, which is what I ate every meal growing up in high school, and it was killing me." And
Oh,
when I figured that out, man, but my quality of life completely changed. Now, there's so many other stories that go into why I went and did one doctorate degree, then another doctorate degree, then another doctorate degree, because for me, I had to learn every single part of the journey. It's just the way I think and it's what I wanted to do, so I did it. But that was a big moment for me. And I also realized this, that learning about myself and my own health and empowering myself was going to give me the ability to maybe have a higher quality of life as I aged. And so and not only that, man, I just love this stuff. I mean, I can genuinely say I love this stuff. And so when you do, it makes learning fun. Going to school is not a big deal. It's not as big of a pain. And I love that journey. I love that story I had. I love the way God worked in my life through another man of faith. And that moment was like, bam. It was like I had lightning that was struck right in me at that moment. And remember, I was
wow.
345th in my class. I was in my first semester, or actually my second semester of junior college. I didn't know when I said, "Yeah, I'm going to be a doctor." This is coming from somebody that graduated 345th, but I didn't make any B's after that moment.
Yeah.
So
Because you loved it.
loved it, loved it, man, and I love
Yeah.
learning. Still do love learning, but for me, I just said this: God told me, God spoke, I did it, and I followed that path. And of course, it's been difficult, but you know, when you think about it, think about this, man. Brother Anderson, who was such a spiritual person, said something to me, and that changed me. And that led me down a path where I met you, and you have your own congregations that you work with, which changed
Mhm.
you. When you look at those
No.
spiritual connections, I love those things.
Yeah. It's the domino effect of it's true. When I tell people this, God can take the worst of situations and use them for the good. He also can take the smallest act of kindness, and people don't realize the impact it has for his kingdom long term. Um, I can tell you when I walked in the door to see you, I was done. I
Yeah.
was like, I'm not going back. I'm not, everybody's pastor, blah, blah, blah. When you coming back? I was like, I'm never coming back. I'm done. Like, how can I ever come back? Uh, and it's like, after this, I feel it was weird because people were like, you look totally different. They're like, you are completely changed. Even my wife, she still sometimes is scared it's going to wear off. Like
Yeah.
I can see she's like, oh, I sure hope this just continues because it's night and day. Um, and that little stream of God's work from one man to another to another to another, and hopefully today this video to another. That's my hope. Um, when it comes to like the anxiety and the depression that many people suffer from, which I think I mean, and this is me not being a doctor, just me thinking about two things that happened over the past 50 years that I think has really maybe caused it: processed food and microwaves. I noticed that when the microwave entered the home, cancer went skyrocketing. So I'm wondering if the microwave has anything. This is just me. I'm not a doctor. But how much of the chemistry in your brain causes the anxiety, depression, or how much is that spiritual, or how much is it just genetic, or is it just a mix of it all? Because I will say there was a moment where I thought, and I would have never admitted this, and this is why I think people actually like me because I'm honest. So I'm just going to go ahead and say it. There was a moment where I believed that my soul might have been darkened, like my person, who I am. Like God created me in his image, but why do I have this darkness in me? And this supplement made that darkness completely lift. It's gone. How much of that is brain chemistry? And is there people out there who are just, there's not a lot you can do, or is spiritual, like from your experience? I know you don't have all of the answers, but from your experience, how much of it comes from the chemistry of the brain versus
Yeah, I mean,
just food or processed food or
yeah, I mean, after 25 years of doing this, you see, you can never say I've seen it all, but I can say I've seen a lot, and I can tell you, I've seen people where they've had trauma and that changed their neurochemistry, and that's a problem. I've had people that have had emotional issues that are so powerful that I do think it triggered genes that really created a big problem downstream in a whole bunch of different directions. I've had people that I do think have darkened souls now, and what I mean by that is, I've had a couple of patients where I'm like, you know, I think this person's possibly possessed. I mean, it wasn't just mental illness. I've seen lots and lots of mental illness, and I've had a couple where I was like, this feels really bad and it feels really scary, and I feel a presence of darkness that, I'm most, and I tell you, most health practitioners will not talk like this. They'll just say there's just different varying shades of mental illness, and there is. But you do get some people that come in and you're like, man, I think this person is under something much, much, much bigger than what these
under
pills.
oppression. Yeah.
Yeah, they're possibly under oppression. So, I would say the most difficult part of my job is piecing that apart in an objective fashion, right? Like not being biased. Like because I'm Christian, I think that everybody's possessed or influenced by demons, right? I do think that there's things that happen, right? And we're all under a state of temptation. But then there's also like some people are so genetically broken and they have so much trauma, they really do need a medication. Some people are so physiologically just unwound that we need to put their physiology back together so they just work right again. And I would say this, that goes back to that functional model that I told you about a second ago. Those are all blended. Sometimes you can dissect one out and it's the major issue, but a lot of times one will bleed into the other, right?
Mm.
Listen, if you get physically ill, it can harm your spirit, right? I mean, and
Yeah.
it can darken a person with grief, with why God, why God is this happening to me? All of these things that make us challenge, it challenges our faith, man. It challenges that faith. And when it
Yeah.
does, it takes us to a dark spot. And I got to tell you, sometimes we go to a dark spot because that's exactly where God wants us so that he's preparing us for something else. So, I look at all these things as a healthcare provider and I'm trying to find answers. And they're just sometimes it's a combination of all of them. Sometimes I'm focusing on one more than the other, but that's the funnest part of the job. It's the hardest part of the job. It's the scariest part of the job.
Mm. Wow. Do you get, I mean, it has to be a sense of satisfaction when you see somebody come in that you think, well, they've basically given up, and then you see them flourish down the road. That has to be, it's it, we do it for the glory of God, but we also do it because it gives us joy to help others. I see that when I help someone who would come in that was struggling spiritually, and then you see them flourish. Um, you're seeing God at work in them, and it's like, wow, unbelievable. It gives you a sense of continue to move on. That's was my joy. That's how I used to get joy. That's what kept me moving day to day. Take that away, and I don't know what I had. I literally don't know what I had.
Yeah.
Do you feel that though when you see someone, you're like, I mean, do you ever keep up with your patients just to see how they're doing? Like, man, that guy's taking off, or
Well, yeah, I mean, we have follow-ups and stuff. I mean, and look, we get the good and the bad, right? Like people come in and they do great and it's, what would be conceived as miraculous, okay? And then we have people that come in and they're not responding. I mean, sometimes I got to refer out, but it's just an interesting thing as we go through this. I I just think that as we go through this and I look at things, why I do what I do, of course, I studied hard and I worked hard, so I want that gratification, right? Of course, I want to help people because that makes me feel good. Um, and of course, I just want to do a job because it's a job. And I want to help people because people should be helped. But, I also feel like I'm a vessel. And when things happen that are great for a patient, I just have to look at God and I say, thank you for letting me be the in between. And, so all of those reasons are for me completely legit. Like when you talk about your Sundays, that fulfills a part of you that I think is legitimate. I mean, it should make you feel good to know that you're doing those things, right? And I think that's a part of it. So for me, there's a lot of reasons why there's fulfillment in this and for why I'm doing it. But that in between vessel part, you know, I I I'm not going to say every time, but it's very, very often and common for me to say thank like when somebody walks out and they're doing better, I'm like, thank you God for letting that happen. And hey man, I think that's the honorable thing to do because if you're given skills and you're thankful for those skills, I think that that's called worship.
well, that was wonderfully said. Is when there's people out there that have like these really chronic illnesses or pains, what do you think the biggest root cause of it is? Is it, I mean, you kind of hit on it earlier, but is food nutrition, you think, the number one cause, or
Well,
it
I
could
mean,
be genetic?
like when I did my PhD dissertation, I did it on cardiovascular disease. And look, here's the deal. I looked at people that had had heart attacks, and everybody that I researched had had a heart attack, okay? And as I went through, one part of my research was looking at a heart healthy diet, like a Mediterranean diet, okay? And most experts will agree that some version of the Mediterranean diet is probably one of the best diets for somebody that is trying to recover from heart issues or not have heart issues. And when I went through and I looked at it, astonishingly, okay, astonishingly, it was over 72 or 3% of individuals that had already had a heart attack did not know anything about what they should be eating to not have another one. And the number one food that people were consuming, here's what they were. They were simple sugars, sodas, bread, and starch. It wasn't the good oils. It wasn't the great fish and meat. It wasn't the great vegetables and all those things. Those were the top things. And these were people that had already had heart attacks. So they were on a ton of medication, but they hadn't been educated on the fact that this stuff right here, if you can change these things, it might lower your chances of having another event by up to 50%. Okay, so
That's huge.
it's gigantic. And so, I mean, those things, yeah, to answer your question, I do think food is a big part, man. I mean, it's like I said, it's the most powerful drug in the world. If people don't believe me, then just go eat cheeseburgers for 6 months. You'll end up having a body and physiology and lipids and lab markers like you've never seen. Unless you're extremely gifted genetically or very young. But as you get older, it don't work. And so you will fall
Wow.
apart. You will turn into what you eat, and you will end up in my office. And when I have to unwind all this, it's going to be more than just getting the cheeseburgers away. Now I have to go back and repair all the damage that you did.
Wow. Yeah. So Mediterranean diet. That would be your recommendation, huh? Like
Well, I
if
mean, it's a good
anyone's,
diet. There's parts of
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Well, there's parts of it
parts
that
of
I
it.
like. There's parts of it I like, parts of it that I think are more important than others. But I mean, it's a fairly good structure that a lot of other diets are kind of based on, right? And there's a lot of diets out there, but I mean, It's just well-rounded. And but I will tell you, the Mediterranean diet in America is not the same thing as the Mediterranean diet in the Mediterranean because the food is different. And look, here's the thing in America, the food here is the quality of food is terrible. It really is. It is way more processed than in other places in the world for the most part. There's a lot of stuff that's in it that shouldn't be there to increase the shelf life. I mean, some of the things like you've seen politically recently, like things like red dye and stuff like that being taken
Yeah.
out. This stuff's not even legal in most of the world. Okay. I mean, so we're consuming things that we are being commercialized that is fantastic, and we're eating it blindly. People don't understand that. And listen, it's not like one bowl of Fruit Loops is going to kill you, but a bowl of Fruit Loops every day adds up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
especially when there's red dye 40 in it. Okay. So I don't know, man. I mean, we do need to, America does need to change the quality of food. And I will say, even organic food is not is stringently monitored now as it used to be. The soil in farming has lost a lot of its minerals. Animals have been given a lot of drugs that are then transposed to humans in regards to what they do to the quality of the meat and so forth. We could go on and on and on about these things. But the basis of chronic illness is this: we live in a chronically sick world. The environment is sick, the food is sick, the stress is sick. And when you add all that stuff up, some people are more susceptible to all of those things and they break into pieces, man, and they show up in our office. And most of the time, they want that one pill. That's why that one pill doesn't work. I can't give you a pill that will unwind that whole story in your life. That's functional
It did
medicine.
for me. It did
Well,
for me.
okay.
But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, but yeah, I get it. I get what you're saying. That's real. So the truth is, sensitivity of food is not something people overhype. I mean, you know that because what you were talking about the gluten. I've heard people, well, food sensitivities, they're just not part of the evolutionary, whatever. But it's not really their fault. I mean, some of this food is just processed awful, and I don't know if it's true. You're the doctor. I read something once that was talking about the food that we're eating is genetically actually altering our genetics and our DNA. Is that true? Like some of the food we're eating is doing that?
Well, almost all food we have is genetically modified or hybridized, right? So, like, we inherit our immune system from our ancestors, our grandparents and their grandparents. So, we have a certain immune recognition of food. And when it's hybridized and changed and it's a different protein, and you eat it, your immune system's like, what is this, man? Like this doesn't make any sense. So it may create an inflammatory response. But look, it's even bigger than just food. So it's like, let's say that you go to Mexico on spring break, right? And you get whatever it is, and you get diarrhea and it causes an immune response. And that can cause an autoimmune reaction to a protein in your gut that allows for gut movement to occur that's right, and it's no longer there. And now all the bacteria, the good bacteria in your gut, you get more that makes methane than hydrogen. So you get a bunch of methane production, and that gives you bloating. And then that starts to damage the lining of your gut. So the foods that you eat, they don't get completely digested. And maybe you, instead of getting an amino acid, you absorb a polypeptide. And your body now says that doesn't look like an amino acid. That's like a piece, I mean, it's not literally a piece of tomato floating around, but it's a polypeptide and it's in here and it doesn't look right. So there's a reaction that occurs. So yeah, sometimes when we heal somebody's gut and we change their diet while we're healing it, when it heals up, they eat better again. There's so many instances like some people can't tolerate the histamines from food. Some people can't tolerate the oxalates from food. Some people just have anaphylaxis to a certain food. So when people say, I have food sensitivities, I have to say why, what's causing it, what's predisposing them to it. And our goal is to always try to get people back on as many foods as we can that are healthy. So understanding the root cause of that helps dispel the myth of the food allergies. Like there are definite food allergies and food sensitivities, but the question is why? And then can I eliminate them? But then can I make you heal up so that where you can have some of those back?
Yeah. Is the so really food, rest, movement, and there is the time where a supplement would be appropriate to take. I mean, I'm proof of that. Um, how do you what I know that you did labs that the normal doctors don't do. Why is that? Why would they not want to look at this stuff? Or why does insurance not want you to have it? Like my insurance wouldn't pay for certain types of labs, and that's kind of odd because my doctor here says, well, that lab's not necessary. Is that an insurance thing, or is that just a lack of, is that just ignorance from the doctor not doing that?
I think
And I
we do
mean
what we're
that,
trained to do, right? So, I mean, yeah, like there's a lot of great doctors out there that are trained and they're doing what they're trained to do. They don't, I mean, they don't know any different. In their mind, they're doing their absolute best, right? I may know something different and I'm doing it that way and I'm doing my best. And so sometimes I'm just looking through a different lens. They don't even know what it is. Now, there's a lot of doctors that say, oh, you know what, there's no research on that, and that is, completely useless. And my first question to them, being a researcher, is I say, there's no research on that. Tell me what research you've read on that. And they're like, well, the research. I'm like, no, I know the research. Tell me the research. Like, what have you actually read other than maybe one paper or you got something in, one of your buddies told you this? Because there's tons of research on a lot of this stuff. So on some of the labs I did on you, I wouldn't really expect a primary care provider to do a methylation gene test. I just wouldn't expect them to do it. That's not part of their training. It's not part of their school. As in fact, if they did do it, I would ask them, where did you learn that? You know, I went through a different system of learning, much of it on my own. It wasn't in my education either. I had to go out and get extra education to learn that. So, I think that a lot of these guys are doing their best. And sometimes when you're the top of the heap and you're the medical director wherever, it's easy to say, "Oh, there's no literature on that. That doesn't exist. It's no good." And my first question is, prove it.
yeah, I mean, that's true. So it's really ignorance. And I'm not meaning that in a bad way. I'm meaning that in the term. They just really don't know.
Yeah, I
That's,
mean, if you ask me like, "Hey, man, tell me about doing a liver transplant," I'd say I don't have any idea how to do a liver transplant, right? But if you ask somebody doing a liver trans that does those, and if you said, "Hey, can you map out all the methylation SNPs so that somebody doesn't have low serotonin and they're depressed?" They would say, "No, I don't." There's a good probability they say, "I don't know anything about that." The problem happens is when somebody says, "Oh no, that's pseudoscience. It doesn't exist," just because they don't know it. That's a problem. And that's a problem with medical training. That's a problem with medical ego. And it's a problem with hubris. If somebody
yeah,
if somebody doesn't know something and they can't do it, that's fine. But if somebody doesn't know something and they can't do it and they use that as their evidence that it's not legitimate, that's just called a bad attitude.
yes, because I actually had a doctor when I told them that I was going to Dallas to see you, they said, good luck. And they didn't say it like, good luck. They said it like, good luck. Good luck with that. Throwing your money away is kind of what they were. And I was like, well, I've tried everything that you guys have asked and it's not working. So I'm gonna go. So I'm so what do you think the biggest myth is about functional med? What is the biggest myth that we need to break or bust so that people feel more comfortable coming in?
Oh, I hear this all the time. You don't need to take any vitamins, nutrients, supplements, herbs, or anything supportive because you get all your nutrition from food. Most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life is absolutely crazy. Or I've already gone over the quality of food, but you also have to assume that people are eating enough. They're eating enough protein. They're eating the high quality food. I mean, to say and also say, oh, if you get those supplements, it's just going to be really expensive urine. There's silly things that are said all the
Yeah,
time,
I've
and I'm
heard that.
like if I went to PubMed right now and looked at all the healthcare benefits from B vitamin supplements, we would not be able to there would be hundreds of thousands of them. And that's not a joke. So for people to say there's you're just peeing that out, it's not going to do any good. Well, tell that to somebody with pernicious anemia. They'll die without it. I mean, so it's like or tell that to somebody with like what you had, a methylation defect that required a certain type of B vitamin just to trigger one neurotransmitter to make your brain coherent again.
Yeah, that's yep. Is there anything about health that you used to believe that you no longer believe, like through your journey, like there, this was something I firmly believed in, but now I'm like, I can humble myself and say that that was wrong. I've learned that it's just wrong. And I'm not trying to call you out. I'm just, is there anything out
Oh,
there?
oh no. Listen, man, I mean, if if you would have come to me 5 years ago, you'd still feel the same way you do now. I mean, that you did then.
Hmm.
Okay.
How come? Just because you had a different approach?
No, just because I didn't know the information yet, you know? Like,
So I just scored. That's really what happened. I walked in the right place.
well, if you want to be really honest,
Hmm.
about 6 months before I saw you, I had a challenging patient that came in that was basically losing her mind. She had had some neurofeedback where they were pumping some currents into her head and doing some things. And it's really kind of a benign thing. I mean, it does help people, but it doesn't usually have a lot of side effects. Well, she almost went crazy from this. She was going crazy. And I knew that she had one of these gene snips, but I didn't know the sequence very well. And so every time I tried to give her a certain component, I gave it in the wrong order and it kept triggering her anxiety to the point of like just, I mean, unbelievable levels. I had to sit down and teach myself this and go through it and figure it all out. And when I figured it out, I learned how to dose it, the rate to dose it, the order to dose it, and she's back to normal again. And that right there told me exactly, I knew the exact blueprint of how to look at you because of that moment. And as soon as I saw it, I said, I know exactly where to enter into this equation and I can fix this pretty quickly. And that's what happened.
Wow. That's whoever that lady is. Thank you.
Yeah, well, and I'm still working with her, but I mean, man, she was, you know what she told me? I'll tell you
Huh.
exactly what she told me. She goes, I'm not a suicidal person, but it wouldn't bother me if I died tomorrow.
That's exactly
Does that
what I
sound
said.
familiar?
Yeah, it's the same words I said. Like, I'm not going to do it, but I don't care. Um, that's wild. When you see her, you might ask her to watch this or just let her know that her hardship wasn't in vain. Like what she went through, it taught you something and it tremendously helped me. So let her know, man, God might have had you go through something hard, but he did it for the good of another. And you can see it right here because whoever she is, thank you for going to Dr. Brock and thank you for caring enough to say, I'm going to study this. Uh, because it is literally night and day. Are there any really cool, I mean, I don't know, any cool stories of, I mean, that one was pretty cool. Like you kind of answered the question. My follow-up question was, is there anything that's out there that where it didn't take much, but to radically change somebody's life or something that was so complex, so hard that you were like, I have no idea, but somehow you cracked the code and it wasn't the traditional medicine route. Like I mean, I'm looking at me and I think I'm probably a small case. Like at least I feel like it because I mean, you had the answer within a week after you got the results and gave it to me. It plugged right in and it worked. And it's very small. Is there anywhere people were just like, they're going to die, but you came in and said, all it took was this?
Yeah, there's a lot of those, but I'll give you the opposite end of the spectrum on this. Like I had a young lady that came in, and when I first started seeing her, she was in her late teens, and she had pelvic issues, she had urinary tract issues, she had hormonal issues, she had connective tissue disorders, she had all these. I mean, she had a list of things that I could go on all day. And I worked on her year after year after year, and I would get rid of something, something else would pop in. I would get rid of something, and something else would pop in. And all these things were happening. And she ended up having this connective tissue disorder. And I mean, you got to understand, I mean, I'm researching her and researching her and researching her, and she's just not giving up. Most patients would have given up on me by then, but she hung in there. And I just said one day, I was like, you know what? I think that this is neurological. And I just did a certain type of, because my background's neurology, it's neuroscience. Okay. And so, look, I ended up just doing some stuff with her neck and just kind of feeling around on her because I have a chiropractic background also. So and she had this unusual instability in the upper part of her neck. So I did an MRI on her, but I did an MRI in positions, not just a standard MRI. And when I did it, it showed that she had so much upper cervical ligament laxity that when she went in certain positions, it was crunching her spinal cord, but she didn't have really the common signs of spinal cord disease. Like she wasn't spastic or anything like that. She has a condition called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And it's a connective tissue disorder where your ligaments get lax. So when you move in certain positions, you get more play in those joints. And so she also had a skull deformity at the base of her skull. I found one surgeon. It took me 3 months. I found one surgeon in Baltimore. I sent her there. He did an upper cervical fusion and decompressed that, and everything went away. It took me 5 years to figure that out. And of course, I helped her along the way with, with diet. But I mean, I was just putting out fires that were being caused by other things because that neurological impulse from her brain through her cord to control all those organs was so distorted that it was magnifying her other underlying genetic issues and other, conditions. And so it took an enormous relief off her dizziness, off of her pain. I mean, I was throwing everything I could. I was doing a lot of traditional medicine to try to control these fires and everything. And when we finally assimilated it, it all started to make a lot of sense. And every single patient I see is somewhere between her and you, where it's like that, or it's way over here, and I have to construct this thing that sometimes takes me hours and hours and hours and hours and hours to research.
Wow. Is there a Now for you, I know there is, but has there ever been a moment or a patient where you believe the spiritual practice played a larger role than the actual medicine?
You know what, man? There's people that come in that know that I don't judge them for their spirituality and they feel comfortable with that, right? And then there's people that come in and they say that they're a person of faith, and I say I am too. Um, and I've had people where they're like, "Will you pray for me?" And I'll pray for them right there. I mean, you know, and yeah, you know what? When you can actually have a, there's always that fine line between doctor-patient relationship kind of thing, right? But when people have a spiritual connection, the level of trust, sometimes I think just the conversation and the level of trust is sometimes more healing than anything that I do because they just actually feel comfortable around a person that they can talk to. Some people come in and talk to me and just unload everything that's going on and they walk out and they're like, I feel better. And I'm not a therapist, but every doctor is kind of a therapist by default, right? But yeah, man, it makes a big difference. Number one, when you're not judged, but number two, when you also have commonalities in faith. And I don't know if, enough about Hindu or anything like that to talk to them about that kind of stuff, but they know they're safe with me, right? I mean, I'm not going to pull anything. I'm not going to ridicule anything because I don't believe in that. But man, I will say it time and time again. People come in, I know God put them there. They know God put them there. I don't have a problem saying I'm going to pray for a patient or even praying with a patient because that's just the way I practice. And you know what? I'm old enough and I've been doing it long enough to where if somebody doesn't like it, here's my answer. I don't care. I don't push it on people, but if somebody wants it,
Yeah.
I'm not ashamed to do it.
But no, it was a comforting thing when you talked to me. I mean, you knew my background, so it wasn't shocking or anything. But when you said, you said I've been personally praying for you, and I was like, what doctor prays for me? And there was a whole lot of people here praying, and God really
I got to
provided.
pray for a lot of, yeah, man, I got to pray for a lot of things. I try to keep a list of just like patients, like a little book of people, and I write things down. I got to pray for a couple of things here. I have to pray, number one, that I make the right decisions. I have to pray, number two, that I don't hurt people. I have to pray for the other staff members that they are doing their jobs and that they can do them with grace and with joy. And then I have to pray that patients can be receptive because one of the things, and I didn't say this earlier, but one of the most shocking things is that a lot of people want to get well, but when they find out what you got to do to get well, they don't want to do it. And you have to coach them through that, you know?
Oh,
And
like
so,
food,
like
quitting
food or like
tobacco. Yeah,
lifestyle.
yeah.
That's why I have a health coach. I was going to bring my wife in here. She's my health coach, but man, if I get somebody in front of her, she's like, "Let me teach you how to do this Dr. Brock said all these crazy things and all this stuff that we need to get done. Let me break this down and make it simple for you because I can already tell you're overwhelmed. I brought a coach in for my, fairly ill. I mean, if you come in and I have to, take out a, take off a toenail or something, which I do sometimes, right? I'm not going to give you a health coach for that. But if you're chronically ill and you need guidance, people want to feel better, but they don't want to do the work until somebody shows them how to do the work.
Mm.
And that has been astonishing to me. Over that one thing over the last 5 years has completely changed how patients get treated and how they feel about their treatment, man. It is astoundingly good. And she's very
I
good at
should
that.
have your wife on.
Well, I tried to get her back here, man, and I don't know, she just, I might, Mike could go get her or something like that. She's an amazing woman. She was an English teacher for 20 years, so she knows how to relate to people, but she's a good communicator. See, she knows how to meet people where they're at. Some people are very defiant on changing diet or lifestyle, right? She can just meet them where they're at. She's so good at it. Not everybody can do it. You can't even really teach some of that stuff. They just either know how to do it or they don't. But it's made a big difference. People don't feel isolated. They don't feel like they don't feel. Some people leave if you don't treat them right. They feel more hopeless because they were just given all this stuff and they want to do it, but they really have no idea how to really start introducing it into their life to make it different. So a coach has been vital, at least for my type of work.
Yeah, for me, it, um, it's different. When I There was a time in my life when I made so much money it didn't matter, right? And I would go to the restaurants and I would order a mystery dish just to taste it. Okay. But when you become a pastor, you lose a lot of that. And what happened is when I started to learn about the nutrition, it's expensive. It's really expensive. And when I was told you have to stop this, this, and this, and this, I was like, great, I'm good with that. Then they were like, this is what you want to go buy. And I started buying organic. I was like, my goodness, you're talking three times the price. If there was something that, like, if there were one or two things that you could say, all right, on your grocery list, make these the priority over anything else. Like, you don't have to, I'm doing keto and I know I'm going to stop the keto. I've got 10 more pounds and then I'm going to go Mediterranean or low carb or
I was
whatever.
going to say, you're looking fabulous, my friend. You're looking fabulous.
Uh, well, uh, what would be the one or two things that you'd say, okay, you don't have a lot of money, but this lifestyle change, I mean, exercise is free, but what is it that you could do this and maybe see a result, not having to have all the money in the world?
Well, look, here's a good tip for people that are listening. Shop on the outside portion of the grocery store. I mean, be inside. But I mean, when you're inside, stay on the outside ring. Don't go through the aisles unless you got to get things from there. But that's where the meats are. That's where the vegetables are. That's where the fruits are. Stick around that area, man, and pick things out. And I will say this, yeah, organic food's more expensive, but you do realize that most of the time people don't clean their plate. A lot of people leave a lot of food. I mean, my wife and I know that we can get a little bit of vegetable, a little bit of fruit, a little bit of meat, and I can guarantee you that we can price it and do it in a way to where if you buy a bunch of processed food that is not as nutrient dense and filling, it's actually not a whole lot different in regards to money. People really think that. And there is places where super high quality food is more expensive, but I also say this like, hey man, how much is your heart worth? How much is your
Sure.
brain? Like, what is, if I was to ask you, what is the dollar amount that you would put on your brain being able to work and remember people's names and being able to function? Because you see,
Oh, I think it.
Alzheimer's disease, yeah, like your heart disease that you have when you're 50 started when you were 25. The Alzheimer disease that you get when you're 70 started when you were 45. And it happened because and there's a statistic out there that's kind of interesting. For every $1 or for every $1 that you spend on a supplement or higher quality food, you probably shaved off $12 of additional medical expenses down the road that you're going to have to deal with.
Wow. See, that's good to know. The Alzheimer, what causes that? I was reading once that they thought it was plaque, but what do you think it would is the biggest cause?
Well, I do a lot of cognitive genetic counseling, and so I have a whole genetic panel that runs through all the genes that can trigger Alzheimer's disease, and there's about 1,000 different causes of this. I mean, and I'm throwing out a number there. There's many causes. I mean, there's insulin and blood sugar. There's small vessel disease and, lipids and cholesterol issues. There's obviously trauma issues. There's a whole lot of genetic inflammatory issues. When people ask me and this is why you don't have a drug to cure Alzheimer's right now, because if you got thyroid disease, which caused poor stomach absorption, which caused a leaky gut, which made you be inflamed for 20 years, and that messed up your insulin, that caused a blood sugar problem, and all of that perpetuated your Alzheimer's disease, you tell me one drug that's going to fix all those things, right? Until we learn how to do stuff, and they think it's amyloid plaques, but they're not quite sure. Some of that's debunked, some of it's not. There's a lot of things with AI and with new stuff that's going to be coming out, gene editing, all these things. They'll probably be able to go in there and fix a lot of this stuff, but there's still going to be one thing that AI and none of this stuff is going to fix. It's called the human will to do what's right with your health, change your lifestyle, and live in a way to where your brain doesn't deteriorate and you don't need a neural link or gene editing or things like that.
I this is just my take, just from experience. Whenever you start a diet, you only suffer for 2 weeks. Like once you can hit the 2 week mark, all of those cravings and things you thought you couldn't live without are gone. At least for
Yeah,
me,
man,
it
I'll
takes
tell
about
you.
2 weeks.
Yeah, you're right. And if you can do something for a month, you can make it a habit. That's what they say, right? So if people were asking me like, what's the one thing I could do with food that would keep me from getting Alzheimer's? I would say this. Well, let's throw alcohol to the side because everybody knows there's literally no healthy benefit from alcohol. Okay. I mean, there might be a couple of situations where it might, clean a wound or something like that, right? Or but if you will just quit eating simple sugar, you will change your life. If you will just stop sugar. I'm not talking about carbohydrates. I'm talking about simple sugar. If you will quit it, and a lot of people will go through withdrawal, they'll have a terrible time. But I'm telling you, if you'll stop sugar and you'll take it out of your life, your chances of all this stuff happening sooner or as severely will change. And there is so much research on that you couldn't read it in your entire lifetime.
So simple sugars, candy, cereal kind of stuff, frosted stuff, things like that.
Sodas,
Yeah.
cake, cookies. But if you'll look, man, like if you looked at how much sugar is in a can of cola, like Coke or Pepsi or Dr. Pepper, I'm not trying to pick on those guys, but the amount of sugar is multiple tablespoons of sugar. It's just
Mm.
like going like this. And so sugar will make your brain hate you.
Mm.
And, we need glucose for our brain. Our brain can function on glucose, it can function on ketones, it can function on lactate, it can function on glycerol. Your brain is so resilient, it can function on all of it, but it hates sugar.
Wow. That's a good tip. Cut the sugar, just cut it. That's cut sugar, eat Mediterranean. I mean, these are just things that people can do in their lifestyle that if you don't have a doctor degree and you don't know, these lifestyle changes, I think, could be the biggest thing, the biggest issue. The TV, the invention of the television screen and the microwave and the toaster, for some reason, when all of that came out, health started declining hugely. And now you got like your mobile devices. People are working at home now. They're not even getting up and going to work. They're not moving. It's and then the work day. What do you think about the work day? You think it should be shorter? Because
Yeah,
people
I
are
don't know. It's
sitting in
different
their
for different.
office chairs. And people sit in their office chairs all day long, and then they get up and go home, and then they're tired and they go to sleep, and they're getting hardly any movement. And I don't know if you can get enough movement in 30 minutes to an hour to really do what you're supposed to do on a daily basis. I mean, it's
If
just
you,
a thought I've had.
yeah, man, if you want to change your life, here's an easy way to do this. In the middle of the day, you're sitting at your desk all day, stand up, okay? Do some deep squats as deep as you can go without hurting yourself and not falling. Do that as quick as you can for 1 minute, twice a day, and you will completely change your entire physiology. It is that simple. So look, here it is. Stay hydrated. Do your those really rapid things that makes your body go into a state of burning lactate and your brain loves it. Quit eating so much sugar. Do your rapid exercises. Laugh a little bit. Make sure that you're drinking some water and then exercise. Go on walks. But those in the middle of the day, you have your water with some electrolytes in it, you're drinking it, you're happy. You're not eating sugar, bam. And then you're doing some of your squats in the middle of the day, and then you sit back down. You do those things, you're a totally different person if you do it daily over time. So there's no excuses for
Uh,
people. I mean, you can take them
I'm
all
going to
away.
do the
We've done
squats.
it.
I'm going to do the squats, man. It's my new thing. I'm going to do it every day. You
And
1 minute, as many as you can do.
as fast as, and I'm telling you what'll
Mhm.
happen is this: if you're not used to it, you'll be sore, and some people won't be able to do it. So if you can only do it for 10 seconds, do it for 10 seconds. But look, if you got a bad knee, don't hurt yourself. But I'm just saying, people won't believe me. But if you go and do it, hopefully there's people in your audience right now that are hitting the pause button. I challenge you, hit a timer, squat stand, squat stand, squat stand as fast as you can for 1 minute. Don't, if you have a heart condition, look, I'm not trying to kill anybody here. If you have a heart condition or something like that, be careful. But look, if you
Mhm.
do it, if you're healthy enough, call into the show or do whatever it is the next time and just tell me how you felt. Your legs will be sore the next day if you're not used to exercising. But when you do it, here's what happens: your brain instantly lights up and you can think better and you will feel better.
I think maybe that's why if I was ever speaking in front of more than 500, right, or 1,000, I would I would pace myself. I would even do push-ups and stuff because it was like, I've got to get this out of me, but it would make me focus, locked in and dialed in. So it's just like releasing endorphins, basically, getting your blood flow, that kind of thing. Is that
Yeah.
exactly what it's
And
doing?
your brain's utilizing. Yeah, and you force your system to go into a state of burning lactate, and your brain loves it. It lights right up. I mean, literally the muscle activation, and there's good research on this. I mean, there's been keynote speeches over what I just said right there. And so you start burning a type of fuel because you go through different types of fuel utilization, and that's why I say do it for a minute and make it high intensity because you start rapidly cycling through different types of fuel, and you start using certain types, and your brain is like, I like that one.
Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and give you just if there was anything that you really wanted to talk about or stress today with the audience, make them aware of, I'm going to give you that time to do that. And also, if they need help, how can they get a hold of you, or is there because can you do virtual, or do they have to come in? Like you could probably advise them
So,
virtually, correct?
I mean, we can always talk, and like, look, if
Mhm.
somebody's in a place where I can't treat them, I got buddies all over the world that,
There you
that are
go.
available. We have a network of people that I feel like do a pretty good job. So look, we'll do whatever we can to help somebody. Sometimes, like you came in and saw me, right? I mean, that's the way it went. So you got to kind of do that. But, you know, the thing that I would say to your audience is number one, love yourself. Okay. Because if you don't love yourself, you won't see the benefit of trying to heal yourself. And if you can't love yourself, you need to figure out why, but you need to be easy on yourself and you need to love yourself. And you need to love, and the best way to love yourself is to love others as much as you can. And I would also say this: find somebody that will take care of your health, that will look at all parts of your health, when possible, right? Like, I mean, people go in with a broken arm. I get it. You get your arm surgically fixed. There's a time and a place for everything. But when you're looking for your health and your longevity and your aging and trying to not get what your parents and grandparents had, I mean, find a doctor that understands a little bit about how all this stuff fits together and that will kind of maybe, really, really be somebody that's on your team and is going to kind of look at things. If you do that, there's a good chance that you're going to find some answers that nobody else would have found. And it doesn't mean you need to get rid of your primary care provider or your favorite orthopedist or all that stuff. Those people are just people like me that are doing that kind of stuff. We're just looking for other ways. So love yourself, love yourself enough to heal. When somebody gives you a good plan to heal, follow it. Don't be scared to ask questions. If the provider doesn't want to answer them, find another one, you know,
Mm,
and then go through and then make a journey to say this. I'm going to be better at this tomorrow than I was today, no matter how I feel, because it takes sometimes months to start feeling better with some people where this whole thing has unwound over 30, 40, or 50 years. So, man, do it. And then find somebody that'll teach you some really good habits that are really simple, like what I just talked about. Some things that are not so complicated, but that you can do and that people can accomplish with a busier lifestyle. And then I would also say this, man, get off all these electric devices. They are making people stupid, and I'll tell you why. So, like Alzheimer disease, here's what happens. The first thing that happens is this: you lose the ability for direction, and you lose the ability for remembering numbers and names. Every single person, even if they're going to the grocery store, they turn on their Google Maps or whatever it is, and they look at it because they want to look at the traffic and do this. Nobody remembers their. I know people that don't know their own phone number or their spouse's phone number. When we were growing up, we knew everybody's numbers. Listen, by not learning numbers and by not going over directions and doing those things, you don't develop the plasticity in the center of your in the parts of your brain that do that, and those are the areas that go first. And there's literally a fear and studies done on what we call digital dementia, meaning you don't develop these things anymore because you got a phone that does it for you. So they die off faster whenever you get Alzheimer's disease. You don't maintain any resilience in those areas. Not only
mm.
that, we are electric creatures. That's it. So I will tell you, there are electrically sensitive people. There are people that are having problems being around high levels of 5G towers. There are people that are electrically sensitive. They can't tolerate this stuff, especially people that are chronically ill, have very low cellular energy function, and have a lot of other things going on that we could talk about all day. But look, have clean air, have clean water. Try to get away from the electricity. Put your phone away. Read a book. Laugh with some people. Have conversations. You need to be peeing right. You need to be pooping right. You need to be laughing right. There's some simple things, it's like the fabulous seven, right? Pee right, poop right, think right, eat right. If you can start, putting those simple principles in your life, I'm telling you, it won't hit things won't hit you as fast or as hard, or maybe not at all.
So, okay, this is going to make, and this just popped in my head, and then we'll close after because I know you probably want to go to bed sometime tonight. The What's the effect? Now, I've heard people, and this is going to make all the teenagers mad. So, video games. I've heard some people say they're actually good for analytical, critical thinking and all of that. And then some people say it's the worst thing in the world you could ever have a child do. Or is it just balance? Or I, because look, I don't mind playing with my son. I mean, we play the chess game and I'll destroy him every time we play, but it's fun. We'll play chess, we'll do that. But I've heard that this can just melt someone's mind, and the addiction of it is so bad that it's like life alter, like it can change someone's way of thinking. I mean, is it do real neurological damage, or is this more of an addiction? Well, I guess addiction is that. So,
Well, let me give you
or how do
let me
you
give you an
weigh that?
example. So,
Yeah.
when we were kids, right, and we were on a swing set, and you're swinging, and there's literally a whole book written on this. Like, this is like in the tipping point books and stuff like that. It talks about stuff like this. Like, you know, there's a point now where consequences are experienced differently. So if you're on a swing set and you decide to fly off that swing set, you have the experience of flying through the air, but you know you're going to hit the ground and feel it.
Mm.
Now we can go through experiences, but the consequences are not the same. You experience them differently. You can talk to people knowing that you're not in their face and they may smack you. So the cause and effect and the outcome of certain things is not the same, and it creates an entirely different world of reality in people that have grown up in that era versus a different era. And on the flip side, now you can say things that are immortalized forever and never go away. So the phone and the electronic devices have changed how our internal reality is created about the external consequences. That's the thing. And then also, look, reality is so different now. I mean, you can play games and exercise your brain, but you actually get more brain stimulation by exercising your physical body than you do by doing these video mind games on your phone. It's been proven. Go exercise if you want your brain to stay healthy and quit eating sugar. Don't do a brain exercise game on your phone. You're probably getting electrical activity from look between the blue light and everything that the phone's emitting. We're not so sure that that stuff even works.
Oh, that's good to know. That's good to know. So put your phone down too.
Put your
Like,
phone down, put your phone down, put it
yeah.
away from your bed, turn your
But
stuff
wait till
off.
this
This,
podcast is over.
yeah, yeah, but wait till the pot. Don't turn your computer off right now, man. But we have to have them. We have to develop a healthy relationship with these things. And I
Yeah.
think that's the problem. Like last story I'll tell you, I was, my kids are over, they're grown, they're in college and they're doing their thing. Everybody was over at the house and we're all sitting there and everybody's having a conversation with everybody on text. And I finally just said, hey, everybody stop. We can actually say this out loud and talk because there's nothing private going on here. It was crazy. We devolved into this text talk and everybody's giggling, but we just could have been saying it. And I have
Right.
to, I have to, I have to tell my family, I have to say, everybody put your phone down. Let's look each other in the face. Let's look each other in the eyes. Let's actually speak words and understand each other's body language and all the things that we were actually meant to do. I don't think we were meant to do a lot of these things that we're doing right now. I don't think we were wired that way.
No, social interaction, I think, is one of the needs that we have to be happy. And when you isolate yourself and you believe that the digital world is your interaction, you're really missing. You're missing the mark. My son, I'm so thankful for my wife because she's the one who made the rules, like cell phone, you get it while you're at school. When you come home, you put it away. You get to check it once a night. Screen time is limited. I mean, she puts all of these rules in, and I, again, being me, I was like, I mean, I don't see the harm in it. I don't. The phone I do because I was a youth pastor once, and tell you what, the phone gets them in more trouble than anything. So yeah, the phone. But I was like, the video games, the TV, I don't know. It's not because he's out exercising, playing football, doing that, coming home. I'm like, well, if he does this, he's good. But she really puts a limit on it. And I've noticed that he is more forward talking to people than most people are. Like he's very reserved, but when you get him talking, he can carry a conversation where some of his friends, they'll have to go to their device. It's like asking a girl on a date. I was blown away that how many kids ask girls out by text.
Yeah, man. It's,
I'm like,
what, it blows me away too.
we used to have to walk across the dance floor and say, will you dance with me? And get rejected 3 times before one said yes. That builds a little character. But like this whole texting and then I don't know. Well, if they don't respond, that's a no. But they don't want to say no because they don't want to hurt your feelings. But I'm just like, oh my goodness. Yeah, I find it fascinating. It's like something I've been fascinated is the digital world and how it's really messing with people's minds. I think it hurts their concepts of reality, um,
Yeah.
and desensitizes them. Certainly, like pornography is ruining marriages. Like it will ruin a marriage, because it desensitizes their minds. And I know I just threw 80% of the men under the bus just now by saying that. But I think that's the number is 80% men. But it's like, you really want to truly love your wife, put that away. Put it away. You'll
Yeah.
view your
And
wife differently.
it's interesting. Yeah, pornography, it's one of those things where I mean, if you look outside of the spiritual realm from just a neurological realm, you know, the thing that a man uses to finish, ejaculate, that visual image, their brain will start wiring to where the event of finishing will be connected to the visual image that they're used to seeing. And what will happen is it will desensitize them to their own spouse. It will make it to where the image of them and that event doesn't make that connection anymore. And it doesn't even always have everything to do with looks, like, oh, this person's prettier than this person. It has to do with
Right.
that setting, that scene, the device. It changes it to where people can actually lose sexual performance with their spouse over that, because it creates, again, a different reality that is not that togetherness, man. And
Mm.
I'm glad you bring that up, because outside of just the spiritual guilt that we have and shame and everything, remember, you're ruining it. You're ruining the experience with the person that you're with, and could either have a good relationship or potentially have a great relationship with. You're ruining that experience by tainting your brain and changing the reality of sex with porn.
Yeah, it's that's a real thing. As a pastor, I mean, I am fortunate because, like I read, 80% of men fall into this. I think because of trauma as child, I don't have the appeal. It's yeah, to me it's just, but the amount of people who've come in my office and have struggled, and the what exactly what you said, the desire for their spouse is gone, not the love for them. They still have love for their spouses, but they're like, I just don't know why or how to get away from this. Um, and I've helped people really get through it. I don't know what the doctor way is. I know what my way was. Extreme accountability and cutting it out of your life completely. And then a lot of prayer, and then pointing to your spouse. That's the only
Yeah.
place you go. There is no uh, and I don't want to be crude, but like there's no masturbation is off the table. All of that's off the table. You go to your spouse, um, because you've already ruined. This is what I told teenagers, um, when I had them, and I actually got in trouble for this. You know, at a but it was a Baptist church, so uh, at a non-denominational, you can say this stuff. But at the Baptist, I said this. I said, if you're in here and you're one of these teens, you have access to this, and it's so easy. I want you to know right now that if you are watching pornography, you are damaging your future wife.
Yeah.
You're damaging your future wife. If you want to love your future wife, you need to stop now. Like, if you want to have a happy marriage, you need to stop now because you're just killing it. You're killing it away. You you think it's fun and exciting, but it's not. You're just killing it. I got in trouble for saying that because I don't know. A parent was like, "Well, we think it can be a healthy alternative than actually having sex." I was like, "Oh my goodness." Yeah.
Everybody's gonna, there's a lot of people that aren't gonna agree
Mm.
with, those things. But I would just say this: but you're gonna distort the climactic experience with whoever you're with in the future.
Yeah.
Um, and it is unfortunate. I mean, it's very common. Phones. You can get just about anything you want to see. You can find it. But you know, I
I think
just
I saw my first inappropriate image when I was 16, and it was someone was showing it to me at like a dad's house, like pulling out a magazine. So it's like that was the first time, think about that. Kids are seeing it 9, 10.
yeah.
That's
And
just crazy.
you can't unsee it. You know, and that's another thing. You can't unsee it, so that when you are with the person that you're with, and that stuff that you can't unsee starts flashing through your mind,
Hmm.
it's tough. I mean, it's out there. It's part of it. I mean, it does make a lot of people sick. A lot of people get addicted. A lot of people, and the unfortunate thing is that pornography turns into infidelity. Infidelity turns into, prostitution. Prostitution. I mean, as far as going that far, I mean, it can push people to very bad, dark places.
Mhm.
And yeah, man, I always hope that people can just do their best to control that kind of stuff and have healthy relationships. I mean, again, I'm a healthcare provider. I want people to have healthy relationships. And part of it is not putting your brain through things that you can't unsee and that you wire together with experiences that they shouldn't be wired with. I mean, those things, outside of my spiritual and faith beliefs, I mean, those are the kind of things. I mean, I'm like, hey, look, I want your brain to be healthy enough to have a connection with the person that you're with. It just has to happen.
Do you have any last words?
If you want to, yeah, well, I mean, you look, I'm at Carpathia Collaborative, all C's, Carpathia. You know what the Carpathia is?
Was it Greek?
The Carpathia is the ship that rescued the people that sunk in the Titanic.
Ah, okay. There you go.
So it's carpathiacollaborative.com.
Dr. Brock, thank you so much. And I am sure this is going to get a lot of views. And I also think that this will really help a lot of people. So maybe one day down the road, we'll do a part two. But just thank you so much for coming for part one.
Yeah, man, anytime. I thank you so much. You're such a gracious person. I really appreciate you. And I appreciate your faith. I appreciate your love for people. And I appreciate how kind you are to me. And I hope that, hey, look, whoever's listening, if they get something out of this or if they get inspired, that's the whole point of doing this kind of thing, right? So let's hope for the best.
Yeah. Thanks again, man.
Thank you.